So why are so many people packing their bag and leaving California and coming to Utah? Well, it's far more than just the cost of living. There's so much to unwrap here. And this topic is relevant for both people that are moving to Utah from California as well as Utahns to gain perspective as to why people are moving here in the first place. And I'll probably realize that half of the people that watch this video are people from California and half of the people watching this video are probably from Utah, and they're going to drop comments below. So I love those comments. Tell me what you think, what you feel, and I'm going to share the truth as to what's happening and why people are moving here to begin with, but also the things that you need to know and be aware of if you yourself are either from Utah and you're seeing Californians moving here, or you're from California and you're looking to make that move yourself. So let's start everything out by talking about the California exodus. It's no secret that for many years now, people have been flooding out of California. They've lost far more residents than people that have moved into the state. And why is that? So between 2020 and 2021 alone, nearly 750,000 people left the state of California. And this trend really took off in 2020 and 2021 for many reasons, but part of it was having to do with COVID. Part of it was having to do with the cost of living in California and the restrictions and the political environment. There's so many reasons why people were choosing to leave the state of California and find a home elsewhere. The top states that they were moving to were places like Texas and Florida, but also Nevada near Las Vegas, or Utah or Idaho or other states in the Intermountain West where they could find and make a new home. But if we look a little further back and we step back and look from 2010 to 2020, 6.1 million people left the state of California, while 4.9 million people moved into the state. And so that's a loss of 1.2 million people over the course of that decade. And just in the 2 years of 2020, 2021, it came close to matching that. So why have more and more people left the state? Well, cost of living is certainly a big part of it. People can't find a reason to continue to make California home. As beautiful as that state is, as many things that California offers, they just weren't able to find the opportunities to make California their home long term. And so this is precisely why far more people have left the state of California than those that have moved in. Now, I have beliefs as to why people leave the state for sure. And I think that my unique perspective right here on a YouTube channel that helps serve people that are making that move to Utah, I get a lot of real-time feedback from people that are actually going through the process. I get to know them. I understand them as clients, but I also understand them as a friend and understanding what they're experiencing and why they're choosing to move here. And despite my beliefs, what actually makes Utah so special? Why is Utah, amongst other places, so close to the top of the list for destinations where people are choosing to make the move to if they're leaving the state of California? And there's so many reasons why. It's the outdoors, it's the job opportunities, it's the conservative political environment, it's the jobs and the economy. It's the fact that this state is run much better than the state of California. But there's more. So the very first thing that I want to talk about as to why people are making the move is the most important in my opinion, and that is the beliefs that people share in the state of Utah versus those in the state of California. And I'm going to touch on those beliefs right here. So first is self-reliance. People in Utah are just more self-reliant. They're not looking to the government to solve all of their problems. And the culture of self-reliance in Utah is baked into our history. If you go all the way back when people settled the state of Utah, why did they come here to begin with? It was to seek freedom, specifically religious freedom, but it was done through self-reliance. There's a reason why the state symbol is a beehive, where the people of Utah act kind of like the worker bees. We are an industrious people, and we were and still are kind of out there on our own, and we have to be self-reliant. And it boils down to what I believe is the government's not going to fix everything for us. We can't expect the government to rescue us from all of our problems. In fact, if we can actually have a government that helps us become more self-reliant, it kind of falls into line with the old saying that give a man a fish or teach him how to fish for a lifetime. I think that really plays into the culture here in Utah and is a real draw as to why people choose to move here, but it really is baked into our culture as a state in terms of self-reliance. And my opinion is if you're waiting for the government to solve your family's problems, just don't hold your breath. And that leads into the second belief that I think is really baked into the culture here, and that is that our government should not be running our families. Now, some people believe that the government is heavily influenced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and while that is true in that many of the politicians here are of that faith, it's also not directly correlated between church versus state. So I understand both sides of this argument, but really what it boils down to is the government shouldn't be running our lives. We should be making our own choices, our own decisions, and directing exactly where we want to go in the future. And I think this is pretty easy to see in how the state and how the cities are run in the state of Utah versus other places, especially those in California. Now, the third belief that I think is really held true here in the state of Utah and always has been is the importance of family. Utah is a very family-centric place. In fact, family is the center of our lives, and I think that that has been lost in other places, especially in places like California, where other things become the center of your life. The core belief that the family is the center of our culture and of our communities is vital to the state of Utah and has become a major draw as to why people are choosing to move here themselves. Now, the next belief is my opinion, but I want to share it anyway. I think if you look back through history as to how Utah really boomed as well as how California did, the core reasons as to why really still influence the culture here today. So why was California booming in the 1840s, specifically 1849 in the gold rush? It was to seek riches, right? If you look through the history of California, people go there to seek riches. Why do people move to Utah? People moved to Utah for freedom. They moved here for family. They moved here to grow a new life together and establish a community that was just different. And so those core values as to what makes Utah so uniquely different than other states are really in contrast to what California is. And I think that's a major reason why people are choosing to make Utah their new home. Now, the next belief I really wanted to talk about is, in general, people want to stay out of your business. In the state of Utah, it's very different than other places. Generally speaking, it doesn't matter what race, what religion, what ethnicity you are. People typically want to keep to themselves and mind their own business. Of course, you're going to get somebody on occasion that's really nosy or into your business, but generally speaking, it's not the case here in the state of Utah. And this is why you see places like Salt Lake City and other areas throughout the state become more and more diverse, because it's actually a very welcoming place for those who aren't of a certain faith or ethnicity or otherwise. I think it's a really good fit. That's why people are so drawn to the state of Utah, and it's one of those beliefs as to why people are making Utah their new home. All right, next up is cost of living. You cannot ignore cost of living. And while many people believe that the houses in California are drastically more expensive, that is true. It really depends on where you're coming from in California. If you're coming from Southern California, where real estate prices are incredibly high, of course that plays into things. But when you look at the state as a whole, the median house price in California is at about $886,000, while in Utah, the median house price is right at $506,000. So when you compare those, there's a drastic difference. Now, you might see that many homes in Salt Lake City or some of the really desirable neighborhoods are far more expensive than $506,000, but the same can be said for areas in Southern California or other parts of California where real estate is incredibly expensive. But this contrast in cost of living is huge, and it's a major reason and contributing factor as to why people are choosing to make Utah their new home rather than California. And while on the topic of cost of living, we can't ignore taxes and other expenses. Of course, we have lower income tax here than California, but when you factor in the entire tax burden, property taxes, sales tax, income tax, all of the taxes that somebody has to pay when they live in one state versus another, Utah becomes more and more attractive. Despite the fact that our housing costs have gone up significantly in the last handful of years, the cost of living in Utah, other than housing, is still quite low. So when we bake in all of the things, including utilities, including all of the costs that are associated with groceries or just living in general, the cost of living here is significantly less than that in California. And if we just compare some of those tax differences, in the state of California, when it comes to income tax, they have a progressive tax that ranges from 1 to 13.3%. Now, this is the highest marginal tax rate in the entire country. Meanwhile, Utah has a flat income tax of 4.85% for all residents. And this simpler model for income tax is much more attractive for most people that are looking to make the move here, especially middle to higher income level earners, because it really becomes more affordable to live in the state of Utah versus the state of California. And moving on, if we talk about sales tax, when you factor in the state sales tax, in addition to the local municipalities where the sales tax is charged, sales tax rates are around 10% in the state of California when you factor everything into it. And in Utah, you're right around 7, maybe as high as 8% for all of your sales tax. So it's a little bit less in terms of sales tax as well. And on the topic of property taxes, in the state of California, property taxes are capped at 1% of the assessed value. In Utah, it can range anywhere from about 0.5% up to 1%, depends on the municipality. And the overall property tax burden tends to be significantly lower in Utah because we also have lower real estate prices than that in California. So when you take 1% of an $886,000 home versus 0.5% of a $506,000 home, that's a very significant difference. Another tax that we all pay is gasoline tax. California has the highest gasoline tax in the entire country, with a combined state and local rate of nearly 68 cents per gallon. Meanwhile, Utah's gasoline tax is significantly lower at 34.5 cents per gallon. So that really comes into play if you drive a lot and gasoline is something that you spend a lot of money on. It's definitely worth noting. Meanwhile, if we're talking corporate taxes, California is at 8.84% and Utah is at 4.85%. So there's another significant difference there. And so when we factor in all of the taxes that are affecting you from day to day, Utah becomes significantly more attractive for those that are coming from California because of the immense difference in cost of living because of those tax rates. And there's no other way to put this, but a lower tax rate on people that actually live here means a higher quality of life. It means you have more of your income disposable to spend on things that you want to spend it on, as opposed to giving it over to the government. So if you're looking for quality of life in Utah, and income tax and sales tax and gasoline tax and all these things are burdening you, Utah becomes a really attractive place to live. Even though it's not at the bottom in terms of the least expensive states in the country, it is positioned in a place that becomes more attractive for people people that are moving here from states like California, as well as other states back east where they have much higher tax rates. All right, moving on, I want to talk about the job opportunities in Utah. There are certainly places throughout the state of Utah where the job opportunities are a little more slim, but for the most part along the Wasatch Front, the job market is incredible. In fact, Utah ranks as the #1 state in the country for jobs, and part of this is due to the thriving industries that are really attracting a lot of jobs here, whether that be aerospace defense or technology or healthcare. There's so many things that are booming here, and it's attracting a lot of jobs. And in addition to these jobs, the whole idea of remote work is such a major player now that people oftentimes are working from home all of the time, or at least most of the time, and so they have the flexibility to live where they really want to live and take full advantage of their opportunities. And so this rise in remote work just allows more and more Californians, as well as people from other states, to come and make Utah their home and find a better quality of life. It's also worth noting that Utah has a much more friendly business environment in terms of corporate taxation, or they have more friendly business environments where people can actually thrive and start a business here. So if you're an entrepreneur, Utah can look more attractive as well. Of course, other states have zero income tax that might be really attractive, like that in Florida or Texas or Nevada, but we're noticing that a lot of entrepreneurs are choosing to make Utah their home for so many reasons, in addition to the low cost of living. And next up, it wouldn't be a video about Utah without bringing up the outdoors. People want to live here for one reason, and that's the beautiful scenery, the beautiful outdoors, and the recreational opportunities that affords them, because it becomes such a vital, important part of their lifestyle, and it becomes so attractive to live in a place where you can actually have a change of pace. The pace here in Utah is quite different than that in California, and people notice this right out of the gate, and it really becomes attractive to them as they choose to make Utah their new home. And combined with the family-friendly environment, and combined with the outdoors and the recreational opportunities, Utah has just come out as one of the top places that people are choosing to make the move to. All right, so I really want to highlight and talk about two downsides for those that are making the move here. Number one, it can be quite a cultural adjustment. You can really find a new home here very easily. You can find opportunities within your job market or your career. You can also find so many countless opportunities to experience the outdoors, but are you going to fit into the communities? And so those cultural differences can really come into play if you're looking to make the move here. And so if you're considering making the move here, please reach out to me. You can find a link in the pinned comment on this and every video where we can book a call and I can go through and answer some of these very specific questions to see how you might fit into the state of Utah and which communities might be best for you. And the other downside to Utah is we have a booming housing market. Housing is in short supply. We just simply do not build enough homes to keep up with the growth. And so if you're moving here from out of state, you might find it a little bit of a challenge to find a new home for you, but that's precisely why I am here. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Steele, and I absolutely love helping people discover all things Utah, including Utah real estate, and finding a home for you. So if that's you, reach out to me. You can find my contact information down in the description below, and I'd love to get in touch and really see what my team and I can do to help make that transition as smooth as possible, just like we do with clients each and every single day. And so although it can be difficult for newcomers to find a home, if you have proper guidance, if you have a professional and a team helping you, it's a smooth transition. So that is precisely why we are here. In fact, I've recently had a couple of clients move here from the state of California, and they found homes here along the Wasatch Front that worked out perfectly for them. And of course, there's an adjustment period. Of course, there are things to overcome. And this is precisely why we like to help people make that transition, because when you're moving here from a different state, you typically don't know very many people here. You don't know who to get in touch with. And so having trusted people and a trusted team of people to serve you and help you and guide you along the way, whether that be somebody who's a financial planner or somebody who's in insurance or a handyman or somebody to take care of something around the house, we've got you covered. We've got your back. All right. And while I'm on this topic, I think it's really interesting. I've scoured the internet and read comment after comment after post about people that have made the move here specifically from California to the state of Utah. And I've read what their challenges are. I've understood exactly where they're coming from, and I see how awesome it is at the same time. And if I could just say one thing, it's these conversations that I'm part of or witnessing that are really driving my content, but not only that, but our business as well. So we're here to make that move as smooth as possible, regardless of where you're moving from. Okay, so with Utah being the fastest growing state in the nation since 2010, and with Utah building more homes per 1,000 residents than any state in the entire country, how do all of these people that are moving to the state of Utah affect Utahns and Utah in general? This population growth, this population boom can be a sour point for some people, especially locals that have lived here their entire lives. For others, they kind of welcome the growth, and I understand both sides of that equation. This population growth brings other factors with it. It brings more traffic, it brings more construction, it brings more things that typically some people just don't want to see. And for those that are coming from other places that are much more populated, they look at Utah and Salt Lake City and the surrounding areas as kind of small. But for us that have lived here our entire lives, it's really crazy to see how much the growth growth has impacted our cities. And I think it's worth noting that it's not only affecting our cities, our communities, it's affecting everything. There are some good things and there's some bad things as well. And it's affecting our communities in general. The demographic shift, the people that make up our communities is changing. If I walk through my neighborhood and I ask each and every person that I come into contact with where they're from, I would say 7 to 8 out of 10 are not going to be from the state of Utah, which I think is really cool because I love talking to people with diverse backgrounds from diverse cultures. I think it's really cool to see that happening. And other neighborhoods in Utah are going to be much more homogenous in terms of people are just from the state of Utah in those neighborhoods. So I think there are different areas for different people. And with Utah continuing to grow as it is, and the forecasts that show the population growth over the next 5, 10, and 15 years, it's really cool to see where things are going to be going. And it's also worth noting that there are some struggles and some growing pains that come along with that. So yes, people are moving here from California for the jobs, for the economic environment, for the business environment, for the employment here, for the beautiful outdoors, for the culture, for the conservative government. People are moving here for these very specific reasons, and I am here to help people make that move. And if that's you, my team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. Reach out to us, let's get in contact and get you started on this journey, whether you're moving in 2 months or 2 years. We're here for you. Please reach out to us. You can find my information in the description below. And if you want to learn more about life in Utah, check out this playlist next. And until the next video, thanks.